was kind of hoping for some balloons or, I don't know, fireworks and streamers, maybe a cake, applause, fanfare, something. Just kidding. I know there's none of that. I do this because I love it. Here we are, episode 50 of Coast to Coast Pinball. Let's go. I told you we'd get here. I told you. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for listening, tuning in. You don't really tune into a podcast, but you know what I mean. It's Coast to Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcast. Podcast? Tonight is a podcast. This is a commentary, and I am a man out of quarters. Episode number 50. Checking in with you on December 10th. 2013. So, back in December of 2012, the lovely Teresa and I went on a road trip. A road trip we're going to sort of repeat coming up soon. We decided that we would drive, because we have a little dog who is very grumpy and has some health issues and doesn't like to be left alone for a long time. A little dog named Sparta, and we needed to take Sparta with us on our holiday vacationing plans because both of us have a 2-week break off of work around the Christmas and New Year's holidays. Very nice. So we wanted to see both of our families last year. Her family is in Oklahoma. The majority of my family is in Oregon. Those two states are nowhere near each other. So we decided we'd just drive. And we literally got in my car, put the dog in the back seat, and just drove. Over the course of 13 days, I believe we were gone, we drove to Tulsa, and then we drove all the way across over to Oregon, down to Las Vegas, culminating, by the way, at the Pinball Hall of Fame, and then home. And we actually left Vegas a day early because we were so tired. We drove 4,400 miles, or something like that. Long drive. And I was really humming, buzzing around on my pinball high at the time. I had gotten, did I have Twilight Zone then? I had my Twilight Zone? No, I did not have my Twilight Zone. I had a couple games. I had Party Zone for sure. I had a Street Fighter game. Might have had another. I don't remember exactly what I had. But I had been playing a lot of pinball, and I was, about to buy a Twilight Zone. And we listened to a lot of talk radio on satellite radio and also podcasts. I'm a big podcast guy. I listen to podcasts across all sorts of genres. I listen to tech podcasts like the 404 Show, which is done by the CNET group. I listen to a pro wrestling podcast because that's sort of like a little niche interest of mine. I've kept up with pro wrestling for years and years. I listen to the Wrestling Observer podcasts. I listen to all things pinball, obviously. And even some arcade stuff, as much as I kind of make fun of arcade. I do listen to some of it. And on that particular trip Teresa and I were on, I kind of played her some of all the podcasts that we were listening to. We listened to a couple episodes of Spooky Pinball Podcast. I think at the time I had been going back and listening to the early episodes of Game Room Junkies. And I think we listened to a new episode of the Pinball Podcast on that trip. And Teresa, knowing that I had had both a college radio background, and knowing that I had done a podcast, sort of a humor podcast, for quite a long time, back in the late 90s. Not late 90s, that's not right. We weren't doing podcasts in the late 90s. Man, I'm getting old. Forgetting what decade's what. I guess late 2000s, 2007, 2008, I had a podcast called The Tin Can. She said, you should do a pinball podcast. And I said, no, there's plenty of people doing pinball podcasts. And she said, no, you'd be really good at it because you'd have more attitude. You'd have a different opinion. She liked what we listened to. I think she was I think her favorite of the three, this is Teresa's favorite. I hold no favorites. I think her favorite was the Pinball Podcast. just because she liked the two guys. She said they seemed nice. She didn't kind of get some of Spooky Pinball, I think. Spooky Pinball's really apt to going off topic, and obviously they tie in a lot of their horror themes with that. And I don't know if she got some of that. I don't think she got the cool campiness of like the EM Dungeon segment, stuff that I just really love. And she said, you should do one. And I said, well, what would I bring to the table? And she said, but you could talk about, buying and selling. I'm like, people already do that. She's like, well, you could talk about, places to play. And I'm like, well, nobody really does that extensively. And she said the magic word. She goes, you travel all over the country. You'd have so much to talk about. And you could do location reports and talk to people. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And I told her that one of my biggest sort of, I don't know, not complaint really, but I sort of lamented the fact that in most months I would get all these podcasts really quickly and listen to them all really quickly, and then they were gone, and I had no more pinball podcasts to listen to. And I would be back listening to like Topcast episodes and older stuff. And I said to her, you know what, if I were to do a pinball podcast, I'd want to do it weekly. Like, do it every single week and have different segments and different things to talk about and really, really sort of, branch out as much as I could. And then we just dropped it. Then I didn't do anything about it. Kind of forgot about it, to be quite honest. This was December, a year ago almost. And I just didn't do anything about it. And for the next few months, I traveled a lot, and I played a lot of pinball, and I bought more games and traded more games. And I remember very specifically driving on the East Coast between, I don't even know where I was, like Rochester and Buffalo, I think. Late at night, I was listening to Coast2Coast AM with George Norrie. And I'm so into radio. I love radio. I love listening to radio, especially when I'm driving at night. And it just popped into my head, Coast2Coast Pinball. It just sounded right, too. I could just visualize it. And that was the spark last spring, summer. Because I'm at episode 50, and we've only been doing this about 7 months. So that's just a little backstory on how we got here. Lots going on in pinball right now. I think that this is still such a fantastic time. I went back today and listened to a little bit of some of my older episodes, which, wow, cringeworthy, some of that. But one thing I do notice is listening to myself, because I don't listen to myself very often. I'll just check levels sometimes, or if the interviews, I'll listen to the interview back, because I sometimes want to hear what they said, what my interviewees have said. But this is an exciting time for this hobby. This is a hobby that is growing and experiencing a resurgence of interest, if nothing else, for sure. And I think that, and I hope that we've documented that a little bit in the last 49 episodes. It's an exciting time to be into this game of hitting a metal ball around a wood board with a bunch of toys on it. That's really what it's all about on some level, and it's fun. And the magic that is pinball, that is the art, the physical nature of it, the sound, and the imagination that you kind of can take to it is pretty great. And I think it really sticks out as unique still in 2013, going on 2014. So that's kind of what I thought about Coast2Coast Pinball, listening to a few things of it today, is that I can tell that I am a person excited about this hobby still, and I dream about pinball and playing pinball and coming home to my games, and working on the games and looking for games, knowing I can't afford games right now, or knowing that I can't afford games and shouldn't afford games right now. I posted on Facebook yesterday some numbers. And I was, it's funny, I work in sales. I get paid in giant clumps of money. And when I say giant, I make okay money. I do okay. And I get commission. And we get a quarterly commission check. And not to get too far into it, but I got a check. I got my fourth quarter. They kind of give us an early fourth quarter check, and then they finish it up after, and we come back from our break. I got the check, and the check was one of the biggest ones I've ever gotten working at Taylor. And it pretty much put me where I needed to be as far as buying Medieval Madness. And I think if you've been listening to the show, you know that I'm on the list for a Medieval Madness remake. So I have the money. I'm sitting here. I'm staring at the money. I have paid a $1,000 deposit towards Medieval Madness. I have sold a couple things. I actually went and bought some other things since then. But I have the money. I could pay it off right now. If they called me today and said it's ready to ship, I could pay it and be fine. This isn't money that I need for bills or anything. This is play money. This is money that's not for a 401k or an IRA or savings account or rainy day fund. This is just money that I have that I could spend. So I started thinking about it, and I wrote out some things that I want to do for this podcast. And I've been doing the shirt thing, which has been very successful. In fact, I shipped a ton more shirts today. Thank you guys so much that are buying these shirts. It's some people are buying like their second round of shirts right now, which is pretty crazy. So I shipped a bunch more shirts, and I started thinking, I need stickers. I love stickers. I played in rock bands growing up, and I loved stickers. So I ordered a bunch of stickers today. I spent some money on some stickers, and I started like putting together a calendar of where I'm going to be next year in regards to pinball. And I have like my best case scenario of all the shows I'd like to go to and do podcasts from and experience and meet people and play in tournaments and do that and maybe have booths at. And then I gave sort of a realistic schedule, and then I gave a worst-case schedule. And I realized it's going to cost some money. So I started thinking about how much money it would cost to do all that, looking at that. And then I said, what do I have for pinball machines in my life right now? And I'll tell you, right now in my room, looking at my Twilight Zone game, that's not going anywhere. Might as well just be part of me. That game stays. I have a Judge Dredd that I currently need to buy a DMD for, or figure out why my DMD failed. The day my DMD failed, I just sort of was mad and have not turned the game on since. So, need to figure out what's up with the DMD. But, there's a couple $1,000s there. It's a nice Judge Dredd. It's a good game that I will get, low end $1,700, high end $2,200 for. So I got a couple grand there. I have this new Bride of Pinbot here. Couple grand, 18 to 21, somewhere in there. And I started thinking, well, there's like $4,000 in machines that I'm not in love with. I like both these games a lot. Judge Dredd, it's fun. It's fast. It's not my favorite, but I like it. Bride of Pinbot, I like it a lot. I don't love it. It's not like, I'll live without it. And I thought, right there's $4,000. Sell that, could buy some other game. Medieval Madness is hanging over my head. So I wrote down the Medieval Madness number, $7,995. And, I have $1,000 already sent out into it. And I'll just throw it out there. I'm on the list with Planetary Pinball, the people making the game. They're also a distributor here in California. That's who I got on the list with day one, and I did not feel comfortable going back on them after I realized, oh man, that's in state. I'm going to have to pay tax on that. It would have been weird for me, especially someone who's trying to support the hobby, to then just bail on them and like call up Jersey Jack or something and just not pay sales tax. I have a sort of a moral thing about that. That seems weird to me. So I figured I was in with them. I'm either going to buy it from them or I'm not going to buy it new. So $7,995. Well, the sales tax in California is going to be 8.625%, I believe, because they're a San Jose company, and that's the sales tax there. And then the shipping is coming from Chicago. And I said, let's call it $450. Might be a little less, might be a little more. That comes to a grand total of $9,135-ish to get Medieval Madness Remake here, San Diego, in my game room. It's a lot of money. And that gave me a great pause. I literally stopped it. I was at work. I'd taken a break at work when I did all this, sketching this out. And I just looked at that number and thought, $9,135. And I put it up on Facebook. I said, some numbers are weighing heavy on my head today, and I wrote all that. And then I said, I think I have to make a tough call here. Ton of people viewed the post. Ton of people replied to the post. Sort of had a conversation back and forth. Kind of talked my way through it. And I realized I gotta not buy that game. It's not the right way for me to spend money on this hobby right now. I am not criticizing this, saying it's too much money for the game, because I think if someone will pay it, it is worth it. I did not ever have any intention on buying this game and flipping it to try and make money. I don't think that's going to be possible on this. I think even with the $1,000 limited editions, the fact they're making standards after is going to keep the price really close to that $8,000. I think anybody who's in California and going to pay at least the $400 or $500 in shipping will have a tough time selling that game for $8,400, $8,500 and getting their money back out of it. But that's not why I was buying it. I want to buy it because I really love that game. I do love the game, and that's why I've really had a tough time with this. It's not a game that I'm just kind of like, oh, it's a fun game, or it's a great game, or it's a valuable game. I hate it when people only talk about games and how much they're worth or how rare they are. That's not for me. I talk about the games that I really like to play. And I'll be real honest, Medieval Madness is not a top 5 game for me. It's a top 5 game in the industry, in the hobby, because of the things we've talked about on the show before, about the great call-outs, the great shots, the great toys, the way they did the humor, the good acting for it. So much good about that game. But actually, there's a few other games that I would rather have. And some of them are obvious ones that you'd probably go, oh, well, yeah, I could see that. There's those high-level A-list games like Monster Bash and Attack from Mars where I think nobody would really have a hard time believing that maybe I prefer Monster Bash to Medieval Madness, which I do. I actually do. I really do prefer Monster Bash. I played both on a New York trip recently. I like Monster Bash better. Teresa likes Attack from Mars better. There's some other games I like better, and I think some of them might surprise you. Champion Pub. I love that game. It has a character about it that I just love. It has a few interesting shots to it that are unmatched in pinball, I think. I know there's some quirky things in the scoring, but that's a game that I play just for the fun of playing it. It has a neat progression system through it, and Medieval Madness does too with the castles and everything. But I actually like that game a little bit better. So then when you just say $9,000, I can't help but say, and people have posted this, I'm not the first one to say this out loud, but I am a guy who literally could do it, could pull the trigger, and life would go on and I would have the game. But I'm saying I could buy an A-list game. I could buy, a top game. I could buy Star Trek The Next Generation, or I could buy Star Trek Pro Stern 2013. I could buy Doctor Who and have money to go find a Bad Cats or something else. But you know what I'm saying? That's a lot of money. And I could get a lot of pinball out of that. I could do a lot of other things. I have a friend who's starting a business, and he has come to me very earnestly and wants me to partner with him. It's sort of a unique opportunity. It sort of falls within the realm of what he and I both do for a living. And I think it's an incredible idea, but it would require some money from me. And, this $9,000 would kind of be that sort of money. And I don't know if I'm going in on that, but that's really also makes me think maybe I should hold on to that money for something like that. So I don't know. I think at this point I'm not buying Medieval Madness. And I know I waffled back and forth, and I know Mark. I know. And it's only money, somebody told me, and then somebody else told me today it's only pinball. So which is it, right? It doesn't feel comfortable to me as of right now. I think if I could have just bought the game and gotten it here, I'd probably be very happy still. I'm not saying that I would have regretted it, but I'm just saying at this point on this day, I don't think I'm going to buy the game. So, just wanted to give you all a little update on your favorite San Diego-based podcast host and how he can't make up his ever-loving mind on Medieval Madness. It's episode 50, and I'm going to talk about my favorite game of all time. Forget about Medieval Madness. Forget about Attack from Mars. Forget about Monster Bash. Let's talk about Twilight Zone. Twilight freaking Zone. Cue the music. Hit it. It's so ridiculous because you realize that I'm saying cue the music and hit it now, and I'm going to have to go back in later and hit it myself. But anyway, Twilight Zone. Let's chat about the Pat Lawler masterpiece that is Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone was released by Bally Williams under the Bally name because it was a licensed game, and they were releasing the licensed themes under the Bally name and the original themes under the Williams name in April of 1993. Pat Lawler who designed the Twilight Zone, said something very interesting in a interview once about Twilight Zone. He says that they took the previous title that he worked on, Addams Family, to the very brink of what was good as far as rule sets and features for the average person. They drove to the edge. They made it as complicated as they could, to the point where it was just almost too much. And then he says, with Twilight Zone, we just drove over the cliff. And I think that's why it's been such a big game for me and many, many others, because Twilight Zone was the game that sort of you could bring home and just never really feel like you were sick of it. There's always its wizard mode is called Lost in the Zone, and it's just so perfect because there's so much to this game. It's based on a theme of a TV show from the black and white era. I mean, Twilight Zone as a TV show was really sort of groundbreaking, and I've actually watched a lot about the show because I'm a huge fan of Twilight Zone, the TV show. And there's this great interview with Rod Serling talking about them doing the pilots in the early episodes for Twilight Zone and how different it was and how they were going to really make people think. And there was all this, pitching and salesmanship of Twilight Zone back then, and it became a pop icon. And so is the game. It's a pinball icon. So when Pat Lawler says they drove over the edge as far as understanding the game and rules, what he's saying is that when this game was sold, remember, this is the early 90s, pinball was booming on location for distributors, for people to make money with these machines. And I've heard it said time and time again by operators and people from the industry, Twilight Zone did not earn, immense amounts of money out on route, out on location. It was complicated. Not everybody understood it. They scrambled to make changes to this game after they put it out on test. Pat says he saw, a kid very, very frustrated when he got the Powerball and couldn't figure out how to get rid of it. And he said he hated the game, and it broke Pat Lawler's heart. But, you fast forward to the years 2000-something, and we're buying these games to bring them home. Perfect. We need that here in the home marketplace. I have a Judge Dredd sitting right next to my Twilight Zone. Judge Dredd, not nearly as deep, and I got bored of it very quickly. I'm not bored of Twilight Zone at all. I love the theme. I love the gameplay. I love the rule set. I love trying to get through the wizard mode. I love the layout. I love it all. It is awesome. So if you look at Twilight Zone, and I'm actually going to literally just walk right over to the game and look at it, you can't help, the first thing that should come into your focus here is the door on the playfield. In the middle of the playfield, above the flippers, above the Twilight Zone logo, is a door. And this door, which, the door unlocks the key to imagination, whatever, the catchphrase, you unlock this door with the key of imagination there. This door has panels around it. You're trying to light these panels. There's 14 panels. And you light panels in this game by shooting the ball either into the lit slot machine scoop shot, which is kind of mid-right on the playfield, the famous Pat Lawler scoop shot, or you shoot to the player piano shot, which is sort of a horizontal cross the playfield shot made mainly with an upper mini flipper, a smaller size flipper that's on the upper left-hand side. And those are the two ways you're going to generally collect these door panels. And when you collect all the door panels, the doorknob lights up, and it has the question mark on it. And you got to hit one more shot. You got to hit the slot machine one more time, or the player piano when it's lit one more time. And then you've collected it all, and you get to Lost in the Zone. And that's sort of the wizard mode. It's sort of like trying to beat the game. And it's awesome. So what's great about this game is there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a gumball machine in the back of this game. I think that's something a lot of people think is pretty iconic, because on the back glass, you have Rod Serling standing in the door with his arms crossed, kind of welcoming you to the game with the light shining from behind him. And in the front left, foreground of the back glass, or the translite, is the gumball machine. And the gumball machine is real and in the game. And it's one of the famous toys on this game. There's balls in the gumball machine. to use the gumball machine and bring it into gameplay, you hit these ramps. There's two main ramps in the far back of Twilight Zone. There's a left ramp and a right ramp. On the left ramp, some people call it the invader ramp or the Robbie the Robot type ramp because there's a little robot on the playfield in front of him. And then on the right ramp, that would be the power ramp because the insert in front of it is the power. And at certain times during the game, that is how you will start a battle with the power, which we'll talk about in a second. But these two shots will light sort of the center panels on the door in the playfield. One of them says gum, one of them says ball. Left ramp lights gum, right ramp lights ball, and then you have a little sign hanging over the right orbit shot, which will light up and say shoot here to load the gumball when that's lit. So then you're going to shoot that right orbit, your ball will divert to the gumball machine, and you will get a bonus, and the gumball machine will actually spit out another ball. Now, in that gumball machine generally is the power ball. The power ball, very cool idea that Pat Lawler had. It's a ball that's made out of ceramic material. It's not a steel pinball. It's lighter, it moves faster, and it's not affected by the game's magnets. So it really changes the gameplay. The machine has two sensors in it at key spots where the ball would be, that if it senses that it's not a magnetic type ball, it's the ceramic ball, it jumps you into Powerball mode where the music changes, you get this like amped up theme, and the game starts talking at you, and the gumball machine wants the Powerball back. This game has this awesome, like, sci-fi, creepy, knowing vibe to it, where it says, I want it back, and don't miss. If you miss, you lose it all, or some of the call-outs in Twilight Zone. It's great stuff. So once you get the Powerball out of the gumball machine, and remember, the gumball machine has 4 balls in it. I believe you can see 3, and there's one below that you can't see. So it's not all the time, but when you do get that Powerball out, your object now is to shoot it back through the right orbit, back, and it gets shot up into the vertical up kicker and back into the gumball machine, and it starts Powerball Mania Multi-Ball, and that's one of the 4 main multi-balls in Twilight Zone. So that's a really great feature. The clock, there's a clock, an actual analog clock sitting above the player piano shot. Very obvious because it sticks up and it almost touches the glass. And the clock is sort of the collector side of Twilight Zone. A lot of collectors, a lot of modifiers and mod guys with Twilight Zone. But the clock is something that went through some changes during the early development of the game when they had the prototypes out there. And some of the early run versions of Twilight Zone had a white face clock. I have the one that has the multicolored yellows and orange and red face clock, which was the standard run after the first couple thousand. That's what they went with. It's the Zodiac clock, and that's and lots of the stuff from this game are from directly right out of old Twilight Zone episodes, which is really cool if you're a fan of the show. So the clock is interesting because when you pick up one of these door panels, some of these door panels, and this is why this game is so great. You're not just shooting lit shots to like complete modes. You pick up the mode, and there's a bunch of them, just by hitting the lit shot. Then you got it. And let's pick one. I'll look down and I'll say, let's use this one. Let's use Clock Millions. So if I get the slot machine, and when you hit the slot machine and it's lit, it's going to randomly award you one of the door panels. Random. Because it's a slot machine. And it starts that mode. And when you're in that mode, you sort of have to make a decision when you're playing Twilight Zone. Am I playing to... I think there's like 3 ways to play this game. There's the score a ton of points way. And there's some strategies on this game that are well documented on how to score a lot of points on Twilight Zone. Then there's the try and get to the wizard mode version of the game, where you find yourself shooting the slot machine or shooting the player piano shot a lot, trying to light up all those panels and get to the Lost in the Zone mode. Well, then there's also the play through the modes sort of style, and that's what I commonly do now that I've played this game a lot, and I've seen the wizard mode, and I've scored some high scores. I play the modes because they're fun and they're interesting, and it's really random on a lot of levels because every time the ball hits the pop bumpers, the door panel that's lit moves around, kind of around the door. So pop bumpers totally randomize what the piano will. It's really random on a lot of levels because every time the ball hits the pop bumpers, the door panel that's lit moves around, kind of around the door. So pop bumpers totally randomize what the piano will give you. And so let's say we get Clock Millions. Well, there's a mode going in there where you can score points. And there's a Clock Millions target, which is actually a little stand-up target, like a post target, right between the two ramps, dead center of the machine. And it's a timed mode. And the clock, the analog Zodiac clock, actually counts down while you play it. And a lot of the different modes use the clock to count down and tell you how much time is left in the mode. You can actually start multiple modes at once, and the clock will default to, I believe, the most recently started mode. So you'll hear the clock give you the big ending sound when each mode goes off. And not every mode is timed like that, but some modes, like some of the door panels, there's a 10 million points mode where you literally just get 10 million. Most people use the skill shot to get that right off the bat. There's a 3-level skill shot on this game with the plunger. This game has a mini playfield on it that's pretty awful famous in pinball lore. If you know a lot about pinball, you know about the playfield on Twilight Zone. So it's called the Battle of the Power. It's the power playfield. When you shoot up the ramp on the right with the power lit, your ball gets diverted. The ball diverter moves out of the way, and you take the habit trail down to the mini playfield. And on the mini playfield, you have this like pyramid with an eye, which sort of represents the power. And then you have these two spirally looking target things that say flip here. And it's called Magnaflip. It was a trademarked thing that the Ballooners came up with to use magnets to flip the ball up this little mini playfield. And the goal is to hit the magnets with the flippers, controlling the magnets, which you can't see. It's pretty cool. And shoot the ball up to the top of the playfield, where at the very top point of it, there's a hole, like a trapdoor type thing, where the ball falls off the back side of it. And that's how you defeat the power. When you defeat the power, it kind of plays paper, rock, scissors, and you get a door panel awarded to you. Pretty cool. If it's also a timed mode, and eventually the magnets stop working and the ball falls to the front and down the trough, and you lose. You rack up a lot of points playing this too, and you can actually kind of ping the ball back and forth on the sides of the mini playfield and just rack up points if you're not trying to beat the power there, if you're just trying to get some points. When you beat the power, though, you double your score right off the bat, so it's in your best interest to do that. It also keeps the ball from falling down into the pop bumpers. Pat Lawler did something interesting on Twilight Zone with the pop bumpers. He put them way down the playfield, sort of like where Addams Family has them, but they're down on the left side, right above the out lanes and the in lanes. And on the early versions of the game, people were complaining that the way the pop bumpers were set, that the ball would like fire right down through the left out lane, and it drove people nuts. So some of the early games have a post there with a rubber across it to keep the ball from going out the left out lane. The problem was, as soon as you change one thing, you create another problem, and they started losing the ball straight down the center, out of the pop bumpers and straight down the center. So they removed it. My game doesn't have that. The pop bumpers are sort of what they call town square. There's madness in town square. That's one of the modes. And it's a risky place to be, and you can get there a few different ways, and sometimes you want to go there, sometimes you get there from missing another shot. The skill shot, there's a rocket kicker, like a rocket ship that fires across the playfield from right to left, and up through this hitchhiker shot, which is another mode in the game with this guy bumming a ride. Creepy episode of the Twilight Zone if you ever see the hitchhiker episode. So you end up falling down into town square, which is the pop bumpers, and it's really fast and random. And yes, you can lose the ball straight down the left out lane very easily over there. The dead end shot is one of the hardest shots in the game to execute cleanly. And you light the dead end shot by the right in lane, and it's a shot through the pop bumpers and up through the back, through a little hole in the back. Very hard to get to. Difficult shot, but if you hit it 3 times, you light an extra ball. So it sometimes can be worth it if you get 1 or 2 on accident to try and go for that third. But that's a pretty advanced Twilight Zone strategy. 4 flipper game. You've got your 2 flippers down low. You've got your right flipper that's sort of midway up on the right-hand side. And then about 2/3 of the way up, you have the pre-mentioned mini flipper we talked about. The right flipper gets used for 2 main shots. The hitchhiker shot, which I just told you about, which will get you through the hitchhiker shot. You collect hitchhikers to start the power, fight the power mode, Battle of Power. That drops you down in town square. Or above that, you shoot sort of behind the mini flipper on the left to what's called the camera shot. Now, the camera, this is a camera that can take pictures of the future. And they integrated this really brilliantly because when you light the camera mode, either through starting that mode or you award it by hitting other shots. I think the left ramp will eventually, you collect robots by shooting the robot lamp. You'll get the camera lit. So you hit that shot and it tells you what awards are coming. It'll give you the award for that one, and it might be a bunch of points. It might be the greed targets, which we'll talk about. Or it might be, hold the town square bonus, because you build up a bonus on town square by hitting the pop bumpers, and you can hold that through to the next ball by hitting that camera shot. But it tells you ahead of time what the next one's going to be. And that shot's interesting because it's a very difficult shot to hit if you just try and slap it with that mid-right flipper. However, if you hold your left flipper button down and hold the mini flipper up, you open that shot up quite a bit. It's much easier. And after I play a lot of Twilight Zone and I hold that left flipper down, it's just almost second nature to me. If I get on another game, say like Star Trek The Next Generation, which also has like a right flipper, I'll hold the left flipper down because I'm so used to doing it in Twilight Zone. It sort of becomes a rhythm of ball coming down the right orbit, hold left flipper button down, and then hit the right flipper to shoot that shot. That's a nice shot because even if the camera's not lit, you increase the bonus, the amount of the jet bumpers every time you hit that when the camera's not lit, and the ball resets to the slot machine scoop, starts out, and comes down to your right flipper generally. So it's an interesting game because if you don't take the skill shot and you just plunge the ball, you really just go drop down into a scoop, which then subways you over to the main slot machine scoop, and then you shoot your ball out. Twilight Zone, I play this game on the road all the time because I love to feel how other Twilight Zones play. And one thing that you'll notice right off the bat is like the up kicker out of the slot machine scoop is different on every machine. And I don't know what it was supposed to be like. I think I have mine as close to what it should have been. I like it to be sort of a firm kick out right to the right flipper, to the point where I can either take a shot right from there. I can sometimes, do a like a dead bounce off the right flipper to the left flipper, or I can do a catch. Sometimes you'll get these really hard shots. It'll shoot right down the center. That sucks. Seen that on route many times. Or you get the weak dribbly shot, which some is even worse sometimes because that can actually hit the right slingshot, and if it doesn't trigger the slingshot, will then bounce right down the middle. There's no ball save in Twilight Zone. You can turn on in the menu a first ball save, but there's no second and third ball saves. This game can be pretty tough. One thing that you'll see a lot on this game is lots of modifications. There's tons of toys you can add to this game. When I bought mine, it had an Invader robot toy mounted above the left ramp, which I just can't even imagine that not being there. There's so many different shots on this game, and a lot of the shots are signified by artwork on the playfield. So you have a pretty busy playfield. I think it's beautiful artwork. You have the sort of explosion scene coming from the flipper area where it says Twilight Zone and then has the spiral awards, which we'll talk about, and then the door, and then all the things sort of laid out across that. One of the first things that I did to the game was the player piano shot, which is on the right-hand side, is sort of like a double wide, I don't even know what you call that, just a trough shot, kind of just, it's open. It's a pretty big wide open gap where you shoot down into from that left mini flipper. Well, I know it's the piano shot because I know this game really well, and there's a piano drawn on the playfield up there, but it's kind of hard to see. And when you hit the shot, you get the piano graphic on the DMD, and it plays a little piano music like an old saloon piano. But there's been some great mods made over the years for actual like toy pianos to put above that shot, and that's one of the first mods I bought. Was a really cool molded piano mod with light. You can plug the lights into the back of it, so it has two different lights. It has a light to light the piano to tell you that the piano shot is lit, so when you hit it, you're going to get the panel that's currently flashing on the door. And then there's also the main jackpot shot in the game is the player piano during multi-ball. So we talked about Powerball Mania multi-ball. The main multi-ball you're probably going to go for here is signified by locking two balls on the door panel. So what we want to do is we want to lock to lit up. And to do that, you hit both your shots, both your ramp shots, and you get your gumball lit. But you also then, at least the first time, and it depends on how your game is set up, because difficulty levels can alter this, and sometimes it's more complex. But when lock is lit, you're going to shoot balls up into this tucked in little shot to the right of the right ramp, but not quite to the piano, so up in the corner. I call it the right corner shot. You're going to shoot that lock is lit shot. And lock 1 will light up on your door, and it's going to lock the ball up there for you. Then you're going to get another ball. You're going to lock it up there. And then when you hit in the third one, you start multi-ball. Now, the way I have my game set up, when I lock one ball, multi-ball flashes above the left ramp, and you can actually shoot the left ramp, start multi-ball immediately. In the plunger lane on Twilight Zone, this is early days of auto plunging. They didn't have just a straight-up auto plunger yet, like we do now. So they actually have a dual kind of plunge lane there. Your normal ball kicks out of the trough and into the plunge lane, and you manually plunge it. Well, there's a little diverter gate that opens, so this left plunge lane where the ball shoots out to from that shot I was telling you about when the multi-ball is lit on the left ramp. The ball comes down here, and the gate opens, and there's a kicker on the left side of it, which will auto-plunge your balls for you. This is something that sometimes needs to be adjusted on this game, because you'll get an issue with balls popping up over the little gate thing that swings open over into the manual plunge lane, and some other little issues can happen there. But ideally, once you get that ball shot down in here, it kicks out, shoots the ball, another ball loads, kicks out, depending on what's locked in the game. There can be some scenarios where you have balls locked or you don't have balls locked, so different numbers will kick. So let's say you get your multi-ball going. You've locked your third ball's locked, multi-ball starts, you get it going. The player piano is your jackpot. You hit that, and it's one of the coolest jackpot sounds in all of pinball. It really, the music's blaring, it's going, it's awesome. Well, I want to do that again, and this is like where you got to know the rules to really score on this game. You need to hit the camera shot now to relight the player piano jackpot shot. So you got to hit that mid-right flipper back into the camera that relights the jackpot, and then you do it again. Rinse, repeat, and you can jackpot this thing over and over, and that is big, big points. So I told you there was a jackpot in the piano for multi-ball. Well, that only applies to your regular multi-ball. When we're playing the Powerball Mania jackpot that we talked about earlier by shooting the Powerball back up into the gumball machine, you're going to want to hit the power ramp, the right ramp, and shoot a ball up into the mini playfield, all during multi-ball, mind you, and you will got to defeat the power. So it's tough, because if you have 3 balls still going, you have 2 balls down in the main playfield and a ball up in the power if you manage to make that shot, and you're having to flip that with the magnet flippers while still flipping the regular flippers and defeat the power that way, and that gets the jackpot during Powerball Mania. It's tough to do. If you're down to 2 balls, a little easier because you can maybe hold a ball on a flipper if you've got control going. Well, told you there were other multi-balls. There's also a mode in the game which gives you a quick start multi-ball. It's called Fast Lock. So if you shoot Fast Lock, you might think, well, what's that? Well, it instantly puts you into a situation where you only need to lock 1 more ball to start multi-ball. So that the lock is lit, is flashing. So it's timed mode. You don't have a really long time to do it, but it's usually a left flipper shot to the back right corner shot, and that starts multi-ball right away. I am blanking on. I think the jackpot on that one is the same shot, so you have to hit that over again. Really cool little sort of Easter egg during Fast Lock is you're going to hear sort of a radio being tuned. Picture like an old car AM radio being tuned, and during that mode, until you do the Fast Lock, you're going to hear call-outs from other Pat Lawler games. You're going to hear, like, it's Sunny Drive Time from Earthshaker, and you're going to hear It's Only Pinball from Rudy and Funhouse, and there's an Addams Family quote. It's really cool. Pat Lawler put some great stuff into this. I referenced the greed targets earlier. The greed targets, there's 7 of them all around the playfield, and a lot of them are just little stand-up targets. There's a mode called Greed where it plays a cool little jazzy song, and you're picking up, these as you go, and they're each worth $5 million. Well, that's, Greed is similar to the Addams Family, same type of thing. And then if you collect enough of them at the end of the mode, Rod Sterling's voice come on and says, see what greed will get you, just like is told to you in Addams Family. So there is a lot of sort of Addams Family to Twilight Zone similarities going on. Obviously, Addams Family had been such a major hit that gave Pat Lawler a lot of the license to go all out on Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone was the most expensive game ever, mocked up at the time by Williams, because there's so much going on here. I haven't even scratched the surface, to be quite honest with you. You get to Lost in the Zone. That's also a multi-ball. It's a timed 6-ball multi-ball. It's amazing. It's one of the coolest wizard modes in the game. Has its own separate high score champion for that. There are so many other little, tips and tricks and ways to earn points and bonus yourself. I could literally probably spend 2 hours. We didn't even touch on things like the spiral and how the magnets work. There's magnets in the outer orbits that will help you and grab the ball and set you up for shots. And you'll hear little audio cues that when you play the game enough, you just get to know. Like during multi-ball, sometimes you'll hear the little catch, and then maybe the Twilight Zone theme will play, and you'll know, oh, that means a magnet has my ball and is about to let it go down towards one of the upper flippers for me to make a jackpot shot or relight shot. It's pretty amazing. If you haven't played a lot of Twilight Zone, I implore you to find one and go play one. If you own machines and you've never owned a Twilight Zone, you will not be making a mistake by going and getting one. I think most people who've bought and sold a lot of pinball machines have had a Twilight Zone at one point or another, just because it is deep. There's a lot going on here. It's a great game if you're into modding and playing with lights. There's been some just amazing examples of this game where people went all out and just really dove in and did all sorts of crazy lighting tricks and custom rails, and it's just awesome. I love this game. It's never leaving. The only way I would ever get rid of this game that I have my hands on right now as I record this is if I were to buy another one. Like if I bought maybe a high-end pinballs restored one or something like that. I love it. I love the rule set. I love the music. I love the call-outs. There's just nothing wrong with it. It's fantastic. It to me is number one, for sure. So that's kind of a brief overview of some of the highlights of Twilight Zone. Love to hear, anybody out there, if you've got thoughts on it yourself. If you have anything negative to say, I don't want to hear it. No, I'm just kidding. You can tell me negative things. There's things negative to say about it. Some people call it a 2-shot game. Left ramp, right ramp. Rinse, repeat, go. I mean, you could play it like that. And there's arguments about it. But that's my take on Twilight Zone. It's my 50th show. I wanted to talk about my favorite game. I think it's awesome. If we get to show 100, which we will get to show 100, but when we do, I don't know what I'm going to do at that point. Maybe we'll just do maybe Teresa will do all of show 100. Maybe? No? But anyway, thought that'd be fun for tonight. It's the game that I love the most. So let's do some housekeeping and let's close out show number 50, shall we? We have t-shirts for sale. We have black t-shirts in sizes. I have one XXL left. Mr. McCullough, we are working on a 4XL tall shirt for you. We're working on that. I have a couple double XLs. I have a few extra larges, a few larges, some mediums. I think I have in black only one small. In our original Heather Green run, I have a couple smalls and a couple mediums. And that's all that's left of those. And yeah, stickers are coming. Ordered some stickers. I'm going to send some stickers out to everybody that bought a shirt, I think, for like a Christmas present. We'll call it that. If you want to get in touch with me, Nate, you can email me directly at coast2coastpinball@gmail.com. I will eventually reply to you when I dig out of my email backlog. Our website is www.coast2coastpinball.com. And follow us on Twitter at C2C Pinball. Facebook's been more active lately, so facebook.com/Coast2Coast Pinball. That's the number 2 in there between the words coast and coast. And I'm always on the Pinside forums looking and seeing what's being talked about. Episode 51 will be here soon, and we'll probably do the mailbag. We'll talk about what's going on in the forums, and maybe talk about a little location pinball out here in San Diego. So I appreciate all the emails. If I haven't written back to you yet, I will get to you. Thank you so much for listening. This first 50 shows of Coast to Coast Pinball has been so much fun. I will talk to you soon, and take care.
I have to do a little waiting myself. You see, Mr. Ross, my name isn't Haley. And I do agree with you, this is an extraordinary place to colonize. We folks on Venus had the same idea. We got it several years ago. And I think I really ought to tell you now that your friends are not coming. They've been intercepted. Oh, a colony is coming. But it's from Venus. And if you're still alive, I think you'll see how we differ. And I agree with you about what they call music. Why don't you play some?
Incident on a small island, to be believed or disbelieved. However, if a sour-faced dandy named Ross or a big good-natured counterman who handles a spatula as if he'd been born with one in his mouth, if either of these two entities walk onto your premises, you better hold their hands, all three of them, or check the color of their eyes, all three of them. The gentleman in question might try to pull you into the Twilight Zone.